Hello, everybody, and welcome to Attendance Bias. I am your host, Brian Weinstein. Today, we continue our 2025 miniseries of previewing each venue on Phish's late summer or early fall tour with a brand new venue. Not just new to Phish fans, but new to the world. The Coca Cola Amphitheater in Birmingham, Alabama, where Phish will play 2 nights on September 13th and 14th. Today's guest will give us the inside scoop on the amphitheater, and he is none other than the co-host of the Phry podcast and Alabama native, Bobby Shirley. Bobby and his son Oliver were on the Attendance Bias podcast about 2 years ago in 2023 to tell about their experience at the Orion Amphitheater in Huntsville, Alabama, where Bobby took Oliver to his first show, and they were lucky enough to meet Trey before the show started. Bobby returns today to review Phish's long history in the Birmingham area, diving into their 2 appearances in 1994 and their several performances afterward at the Oak Mountain Amphitheater over the next 20-plus years. More than that, the Coca Cola Amphitheater just opened at the time that Bobby and I spoke. So for all of you listeners who are planning to catch Phish at Birmingham, we've got good news. This seems like the perfect place for a mid-September 2-night run in the South. So let's dive into some barbecue in the Deep South with Bobby Shirley to get ready for September 13th and 14th at the Coca Cola Amphitheater in Birmingham, Alabama. Bobby, welcome back to Attendance Bias. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm super pumped that you asked me to be on here again.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to have you here, although this time you are one person left because the last time you were here, you were on the podcast with your son Oliver to talk about Oblivion and Chalk Dust Torture from July 11th, 2023 in another Alabama venue, the Orion Amphitheater in Huntsville. And at that time, I don't think you were just getting it kicked off, but you were in the beginning stages, I think I can fairly say, of your podcast, the Phry podcast. That's Phish, as we all know, Phry podcast. Bobby, can you tell us a little bit about the podcast, how it got started and how it's going? This was about 2 years ago.
I was looking today because today is the anniversary of our first live Phish show. And so I was posting that this morning. It's hard to believe. But so we started the Phry podcast basically because Oliver, my third child, just had to listen to whatever I'm listening to in the car. And it's been Phish for quite a while now. And he started liking it and listening to it in his room. And so I was like, dude, we need to talk about this more. I was like, would you be open to do a podcast? He goes, yeah. So we started Phry podcast. We originally just went through all the studio albums and just listening and talking about all the songs. And then we branched out into live shows because, I mean, Oliver, he just turned 12. So it's a lot to take on a, full Phish show, especially without the lights, which is what he was used to seeing clips of on YouTube and stuff. But so we've been doing this about 2.5 years now, I think. It's going great. It's growing. First and foremost, we're just having a lot of fun, be able to connect over Phish. And I cannot, for anything, get anybody else in the family to really get on board with Phish. So Oliver's my only hope. So that's just where we are.
So if he was 10 years old when you first started, he's 12 years old currently. How has your role as the co-host changed as your son has gotten older? Because obviously you would be the lead, you are
Right.
the host and he is the co-host, but has he become any more assertive? Because I remember when I spoke to you guys on Attendance Bias, he started off with very strong comments and he was eager to answer questions. And then as we got into the nitty gritty of the music, he got a little bit more quiet.
Right.
I work with 12-year-olds. I know he was a little younger at the time. So I understand that as your confidence wanes, you get a little bit more introverted.
Sure.
Has he changed as a host? Speaking as a father, I guess I'm asking you. I'm not the father. You are. I don't have any kids except my dog. Have you noticed any changes in his personality as a host as you've developed this podcast?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because me and my wife have talked about this because there's an ebb and flow to it. Certain times he's all in. He's all about Phish. He probably has a little bit of my ADHD, and so hyperfixation is a real thing. And then other times, it's Oliver, I need you, let's make sure you listen to this show so we can talk about it. And it's like kind of like whatever. It's interesting because he seems to have more ideas about, which is probably just where he is at in his life, about things we could do for social media. Like it'd be fun to record a video about this or make a reel about this or whatever. So it is a little bit more prodding and pushing. And, I told him, I was like, but if you don't want to continue to do this, we can change it. We can stop doing it. I don't want you to do something you're not passionate about. And then a couple weeks later, I hear him in his room and he's listening to Phish and he's like, Dad, have you heard this show or, seen this? Or so, I mean, if he's 12, and some days he's all about it. Other days it's Star Wars. Other days it's Stranger Things. And so, I mean, it ebbs and flows. But when he's listening to a show, sometimes his insights and things he notices are things that I didn't pick up on, and I find that fascinating. His takes on a show as a whole are interesting to me. Currently, as we're recording, we're going through the Baker's Dozen, which is a big undertaking, and he's really into more of ranking the shows, how they each rank as a whole together. And so we actually had a conversation this week about that. Like, I'm not really sure about this next show because the previous one was, wasn't as great as the other ones and things like that. So I find it interesting how he's thinking about Phish and Phish shows for the podcast. So it's kind of a mixed bag.
What's one thing you can say that you've learned from him as you've done this project?
That's a very good question. One thing I've learned from him, I think it's something that I've probably learned from the Phish community at large, but seeing it through his eyes is just taking each show for what it is. Obviously, we only have attendance bias for one show together, and then I have one show after him. Just taking each show like, all right, we're going into this with fresh eyes and just, this is really good. And then being able to evaluate the show we've listened to a previous show or something else. Like, I did like the way they played this Reba, or they kind of did this, this jam and this song or whatever. So I think just kind of maybe the childlike wonder, if you will, of hopeful expectation of each show. I think
that's why we all keep coming back to some degree.
I completely agree. It's, every day's a new chance. So.
And for those of you listening, one more time, it is the Phish Phry, Phry podcast for Bobby and Oliver. I think it started as a father guiding his son, but now it seems kind of just two big Phish fans with a paternal relationship discussing the band and the shows. It's a really wonderful concept, and it's a really entertaining listen.
Thanks. We like to have fun. We try to keep them short because I know that everybody has the time investment to listen to long podcasts, so we keep them short. Also, attention span of a 12-year-old.
But you and I, Bobby, are here today to talk about a new venue, a brand new venue, actually, the Coca Cola Amphitheater, for which Phish is going to play 2 nights in September 13th and 14th in Birmingham, Alabama. This is part of my recent series of previewing venues before the show is actually played. So let me ask you, before we get into the Coca Cola Amphitheater, these shows, starting at the Louisville Bourbon and Beyond Festival, going through Birmingham for 2 nights, Alpharetta for 2 nights, and closing at Hampton. So that's September 12th and ending the 21st. Honestly, no one's listening, no one's judging. Well, I hope people are listening, but no one's judging. Is this an extension of the summer tour, or is this a fall tour in your eyes? Because when Phish announced this, I'm looking at it right now, they purposely, it seemed, avoided using those words. It says, before summer comes to a close, Phish will head south from Louisville in September for 2 shows, and then they go on to the dates. So they went out of their way not to call it a fall tour, but they also didn't call it an extension of the summer tour. If you were their PR person, how would you phrase this?
I think it's a fall tour. September in Alabama and in the South is hot because it's just the South in the late summer, early fall. But I would say it was a early fall tour. That would be probably how I would word it.
I agree with you.
There's enough of a break from when they end their current leg of the summer tour that, they go to Bourbon and Beyond and then they hit Alabama. I would just say it's an early fall tour.
I agree. As a teacher, I have different kind of different dates or different months signify different seasons to me. So to me, September means it's fall.
Yes,
because
Agreed.
it's back to school. It doesn't matter how hot it is. It's not the 21st, I know, but
Yeah.
September 1st, that changeover, August is over, summer is over,
Yep.
it's school
Yep.
starts, it's the fall. And like when it's June 1st, to me, that's the summer. Like
Yeah.
it just
I would
is.
agree with you.
So,
I completely agree with that hypothetical calendar timeline. Like
yeah.
June starts the summer, September starts the fall.
Yep. Then,
So
as a teacher, those are the only 2 seasons anyway. So, but we are here, like I said earlier, to discuss this brand new amphitheater, the Coca Cola Amphitheater, September 13th and 14th in Birmingham. So, Bobby, I'm sure people can hear it in your voice. You spoke last time about a show in Huntington. What is your
Huntsville.
history? Huntsville, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What
No,
is
you're
your
good.
history in Birmingham? And what's your
So
relationship to the city?
yeah, so I live in the northwest corner of Alabama in the Muscle Shoals area, which is known for its musical history, especially in the 60s and 70s. So we're about an hour and a half ish from Birmingham. For me, Birmingham is like the big city. Like Huntsville is a big city, and it's probably one of the larger ones in Alabama right now. It's going through a huge boom of growth, but Birmingham has always been like the big city for us. It's too far really for us to go to Nashville or Atlanta easily. So Birmingham is kind of the big city. But I grew up with family like in Birmingham. That's where like my dad's family is. And so we would always go down there to visit our family. And that was always exciting to me, getting to visit cousins and hang out for a few days and stuff like that. So my relationship to Birmingham has always been a good one. I've always loved going to Birmingham, go to the Galleria, go shopping at this massive mall they had. So there's a lot there. I've seen a lot of shows in Birmingham and that general area. I mean, that's where bands would come for the most part, would be Birmingham. That'd be a more of a key stop for a lot of bands. So my experience in Birmingham's, it's a great one. I love the city. It's a fun one for, I don't know if I was going to say it's easy to get around in. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that, but I mean, you've got Highway 20 or Interstate 20 and I-65 coming right through there. So it's pretty centrally located.
And compared to some of the other cities that you just name checked, like Atlanta or Nashville, for example, or Huntsville, even,
Mhm.
what makes Birmingham unique compared to the other cities? Like, if I were looking at this run in the fall, we'll just take it for granted now, in the fall for Phish, and let's say I had a week off, but I could only hit one city, why should I go to Birmingham? What makes it unique?
I would say, A, Southern hospitality. You're going to find that anywhere you are around the South. Alabama is critically underrated for its inherent beauty. You've got mountains, you've got rivers. We take it for granted, honestly, but where I live is right along the Tennessee River, so I drive across it at least twice a day. But through Birmingham, you've got rivers and creeks and mountains. There's lots of hiking trails. There's a lot of things to do. If that's not your thing, there's lots of great food around Birmingham and the surrounding area. Yeah, I would say number one, just the Southern hospitality. I mean, you come down here, you're gonna find a little hole in the wall restaurant. That's gonna be the best food you've ever put in your mouth. Little meat and three, or some great barbecue, or some killer like taqueria type restaurants, ethnic Mexican food. Just it's gonna blow your socks off. So
What's one thing? Let's say I'm going to these two Birmingham shows. What's
mhm.
one thing, or if you have a specific place you could name, go for it. But even if you don't, what's one dish or one thing I should order before I leave Birmingham for sure?
One of my favorites. I'll pose it this way: Dreamland Barbecue is probably one of my favorite barbecue restaurants in the South. It either started in Birmingham or started in Tuscaloosa, but it's got deep roots in the South, right there in the Birmingham Tuscaloosa area, and it's some of the best barbecue you're going to eat. I don't know, wouldn't necessarily say it's like Carolina type barbecue or Texas. I don't know what genre of barbecue it is, but it's delicious. So
Yeah, I love
that,
barbecue, although I'm not an expert in differentiating regional
yeah,
barbecue. I like ribs and I like brisket and I like a ton of sauce, and that's kind of where my pickiness ends.
yeah, exactly. Barbecue's gonna be good. Hopefully, it's gonna be better than the last time I had barbecue, but we're gonna go for it.
Well, taking a look at Phish's history in Birmingham, and as you suggested on our notes, the surrounding area as well, because when I looked up Birmingham on Phish.net, the information I got back is that Phish has played exactly one show in Birmingham within the city limits, I suppose, as of
Hmm.
this recording, as of our conversation now. That show was on May 2nd, 1994, at the Five Points South Music Hall, which I found as I was typing is quite a mouthful of a venue name. The venue was still in operation, although the South was taken out of it. So now it's just the Five Points Music Hall. And I was thrilled to find out that that is located in a former Piggly Wiggly, which I've never been to. I've never been to a Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah. I feel like that's a very, very Southern thing. I mean, we've had Piggly Wigglies over here. It's, it's not one of the bigger chain, but it is a chain of grocery store. There's actually a Piggly Wiggly in the town I grew up that I graduated in. So that's where everybody would go shop at the pig.
I will next time I'm down by you. But I guess the club was brand new when it opened in 1994 with the Coca Cola Amphitheater, and we'll get to this in a little bit. It's also brand new at the time of our conversation now. So I guess Phish only comes to Birmingham when there's a brand new venue to play. And apparently, this venue, the Five Points, was run by a guy named Tony Ruffino. He wanted to bring acts of a similar caliber who recently played the previous Birmingham club called the Brothers Music Hall. Now, I'm guessing that you and I are about the same age. Do you have any recollection of any of these places in the city of Birmingham, or were you too young to go out for a night?
Yeah. So I was too young and too far away. I've been trying to think of it and I did not look it up, but there was a radio station out of Birmingham that I listened to as a teenager, and they would play things from Five Points. And here's a new band that's coming into Five Points, playing at music hall and stuff like that. But it was out of my scope. But I am aware of both Brothers and Brothers more from just the name of what it became. But Five Points Music Hall for sure was kind of the hot spot for up and coming bands.
That makes sense to me because there are a lot of venues both on Long Island and New York City that I've only heard of, but I
Hmm.
couldn't tell you anything about because they all closed down by the time I was old enough to go out and see shows at them. But focusing on Phish's gig there on May 2nd, 94, I listened to bits and pieces of it, but just on paper, it looks like a certified classic 1994 show. Like if you could package 1994 into one show, it
That's
looks
it.
like this.
I was just gonna say it. Not that we really like to use the word cookie cutter, but it is a cookie cutter '94 show.
Right. The thing is, cookie cutter has that connotation meaning unoriginal, right? Or it means like
Hmm.
nothing special. But the thing about Phish, especially in the spring in May of 1994, every show was special. I mean, this show, the 2nd of May, was just a couple days before the Tweezerfest show in Dallas, which is, I could say, probably one of the most influential tapes that I've ever listened to, like over and over and over again when I was getting into the band. It was You
Yeah,
Must Have This. So if
yeah,
you're within that week, this Birmingham show, this looks like it's right up there.
yeah. It's almost kind of like the night before the night that people always talk about in the Fish realm, but it's like that week they're going to be firing on all cylinders. It's gonna be a show you wouldn't want to miss, and one that you'd probably check out and listen to at least a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, it opens with the Great Gig in the Sky into Split Open and Melt.
I'm not afraid to die. Anytime of the why should I be afraid to die?
If they did that today, it would break the internet. And not only that, there was a guest appearance from Oteil Burbridge and Stacey Starkweather with Stairway to Heaven teases and even a rotation jam. Any one of those notes and place it in a 2025 set list, and people are losing their minds.
Absolutely. Looking back over the history of what and who came through Birmingham, when I saw that Oteil had sat in with the band, I was like, yeah, and then, like, he's in there several other times with other bands throughout the year. So, but yeah, you're right. You take just that opener or the fact that we had this sit in and rotation, like today it would be all we'd talk about for years and 5 stars on Phish.net,
Totally. And then in our notes, that was the only show that I listed.
Right.
And you put a really interesting note. You wrote that as Alabamians. Am I pronouncing that right? I don't want to be an asshole.
That's how I'd say it.
Okay, good. Alabamians, you wrote that, quote, we consider Pelham a suburb of Birmingham, so the shows at Oak Mountain Amphitheater should be regarded as Birmingham shows.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I brought that up because, well, we'll get into it, but when I was at the Coca Cola Amphitheater just a few weeks ago, I was talking to the guy sitting next to me, and we talked about Oak Mountain. And being from the north part of the state, I would not say, let's go see a show in Pelham. I would say, let's go to Birmingham to see whichever act. And it just so happens they're playing at the Oak Mountain Amphitheater in Pelham, Alabama. It's not really this, but the way I would reckon it is kind of like the boroughs in New York City. Like when I say New York City, obviously you being in New York City, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I could be unknowingly talking about Queens or one of the boroughs up there, just because it's so foreign to us in general down here. Other Alabamians that listen to your podcast and listen to my podcast may completely disagree with me. But if I said I'm going to see Phish in Birmingham, people would understand that I'm either going to the Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center or I'm going to Oak Mountain Amphitheater, depending on the time of year. So that's just kind of why I wanted to make that note, because on paper it is different, but most Alabamans are probably considered Pelham.
Well, it's funny you say that, and I think I agree with what you said about New York City, because living in Forest Hills, where Phish is playing this summer, and if someone said, where are you seeing Phish? And someone said, oh, they're playing in Forest Hills, they're playing in Queens, but the New Year's run is in the city. Even though Queens is technically part of New York City, it's a borough of New York City, there's still this like regionalism, this distinction of, the city is Manhattan only, and the outer boroughs don't count. So I get what you're saying, that it really has to get down to the nitty gritty when you talk about where a city name really implies. But since you brought up Pelham, or you really brought up Oak Mountain, it's worth noting that Phish has played 5 shows at Oak Mountain going back to October 15th, 94. So they played Birmingham, this small club, which is about 1,000 people, in
Right.
May, and then 5 months later they came back to Oak Mountain in October on October 15th. So
Right.
how much bigger was Oak Mountain?
Within the past 6 months of this recording, they tore down Oak Mountain. I think there was something, it needed some repairs, and the city just bought it and tore it down. But I believe it was 10,000 ish seats, 9 to 10,000, which is pretty comparable to the new amphitheater we're going to talk about. So I mean, they went from 1,000 seats to a 10,000 seat amphitheater, which I'm not sure how sold out that show was back in '94, but it would have been a great venue. It was a great venue. I've seen a couple of shows there, but yeah, it's a big jump from 1,000 seats to a roughly 10,000 seat amphitheater.
And they came with all their tricks, just that it didn't matter how big the venue was, because we just talked about all the fun, wacky Phish.net setlist notes from that May 94 show. The October 94 show, they played acoustic foreplay long time.
It's been such a long time. Time runs away from me. It keeps on rolling. Sail on a distant highway. I got to keep on chasing that dream. Gotta be on my way. Saying something I can say. Well, I'm taking my time. You'll forget about me after I've been gone. Well, I take what I find just outside of your front door. It's been such a long time.
They had Dave Matthews Band come on. They played The Maker as an encore. I mean, that's going to draw some notes. Like, that's going to turn some heads.
I'm a stranger in the eyes of the maker. I could not see for the fall of my heart. I could not feel for the feeling in my life. From across the great divide, in the distance I saw light. John Baptist walking to me.
And then they wouldn't return, though, for 5 more years. They came back in the fall, the proper fall tour of 1999.
That's right.
September 28th, where the set list opens with Farmhouse, Heavy Things, and First Tube, which is very much of its time.
Yeah. Yeah, they just pushed play on the farmhouse record, basically. I mean, that was the year I graduated, and Phish was only slightly outside of my sphere of bands that I'd heard of, but I'd heard that they were coming. They were a band that was talked about on the radio as coming into town. But it was outside of my sphere.
Right, but I imagine by the time they came back, which was August 24th, 2012, you were fully in. They were no longer outside of your sphere. You were in their sphere, I'm guessing.
Right. Yeah, they were more on my radar. I know we talked about this last time I was on, but I didn't really fully get into become more aware of Phish until 2005. And so they were still in my periphery, but like I knew the band, I knew mainly Billy Breathes, and then I had seen Farmhouse on, I think it was VH1 or something. So they were more in my radar, but at this season of my life, it was not. We'd just had a kid, and we're not going to see Phish just yet.
Right. So that makes more sense, both from your like family point of view, but also
Hmm.
they had only been back for a couple years at that point, right? They came
Yeah.
back in 2009, and the summer of
Hmm.
2012. What I remember from it mostly was they were almost trying to push to see how many different songs can they play in one tour. So on this 2012 show, there were no major bust outs that I saw, at least, but the first set featured 13 songs and the second set had 10 songs, including a version of Rock and Roll, the Velvet Underground song that's on the Phish.net jam charts. And then they would come back again in 2014 and 2021.
Yep.
So let me ask, over with the band coming in a couple of months to Birmingham, is there much of a jam band slash Phish scene in Birmingham that you're aware of?
Honestly, before we went to Huntsville, I would have said I have no clue. But we talked to a bunch of people both nights I was at Phish in Huntsville 2 years ago that were from the Birmingham area and the greater Alabama area. So there is somewhat of a jam band scene. I looked up the other day trying to see if there were any known jam bands in Birmingham, and there seemed to be a couple, none that I've heard of. But I would say there are quite a bit of jam band fans in Birmingham and the surrounding areas.
And for the Coca Cola Amphitheater, I'm guessing, I might be wrong on this, but the way I viewed it after hearing you tell your story about Oak Mountain and it's been torn down, is this meant to kind of replace it or to provide a larger outdoor amphitheater for the Alabama area or for the Birmingham area?
Yeah, I think that's what this is. I think that's what it's meant to do. I heard several people when I was there a few weeks ago talking about how much they miss Oak Mountain because apparently it had been down for a little bit just for repairs before they decided to tear it down. But I think this is just meant to replace it, update it, and give a new amphitheater spot in the kind of central Alabama area.
Well, let's focus on it a little bit. First,
Okay.
before we get into the amphitheater itself, what is the area around the amphitheater like? If I'm a fan from New York coming down to Birmingham to see Phish, what can I expect on show day?
When you come into town, when you come into Birmingham, you're going to come in generally on 20 if you're coming from the airport, or if you're going to come down or up on highway Interstate 65, and you're going to be in downtown, what would be considered downtown Birmingham, just north of, I guess, technical Birmingham, but you'll see all of our skyscrapers. Um, but yeah, you're apparently the amphitheater, because we could see it from our seats, is just right beside a Top Golf, And then you're close to the Birmingham Jefferson Convention Center. I mean, I think it said Civic Center earlier, but I think it's Convention Center. So you're kind of in this little entertainment hub, and there's a little area right there they call Uptown, which has got it's got some stores, it's got some restaurants and things in it. So you're going to come into something similar to what you're coming from as a New Yorker, a downtown, but you're going to have a bunch of trees, a whole bunch of trees, and like houses. It's kind of in a pocket of. You can tell they're expanding out the downtown and entertainment area, but at the same time, it's still there's some houses around there, kind of where close to where we parked when we went, and so there's a little bit of mix, but it's a growing area right there.
And you said you were there a couple of weeks ago. Normally, I do a lot of research about the history of the venue. There is almost no history of the venue at the time we're speaking because the venue officially opened on June 22nd, 2025. We're recording less than a month after that. I mean, on its website, the pictures of the Coca Cola Amphitheater are still the artist's rendering drawing.
Correct.
There's no actual photographs. It's fully outdoors. You mentioned this a little earlier that the capacity is 9,300, at least its stated capacity, and it looks gorgeous. So what was your experience going earlier this summer? Who were you there to see? What was it like inside the amphitheater? Any tips and tricks you would offer?
Sure. So my youngest son is a very big Dave Matthews Band fan. And Dave Matthews is the one that kind of got me into the jam band scene. So the last time we saw Dave was in Tuscaloosa. So I decided, let's take my youngest son. And so we went. So the venue opened, I think you said on the 22nd with, I think they had Matt Rife. He's a comedian. He was the first show they had. The first musical act they had was Dave Matthews. So me and my youngest son went down to their first musical show at the amphitheater. And so, I mean, the paint is barely dry when we get down there. I mean, it's brand spanking new, as they say. Beautiful venue. I will say, because of where the airport is, every 10, maybe 15 minutes, I'm shorter, you will have an airplane fly over top of of the venue as it's coming into land. But my experience with that was, depending on what the band was doing, if it was a quieter part of a song, obviously you'd hear it. But for the most part, I couldn't even really hear it. But you'll see them. They're flying right over top of the venue. Parking was surprisingly easy for us. There are several parking lot areas that they manage or are managed for the venue. So we were able to park just across the street in a parking deck, got in and out very easy, but we're, 2-minute walk from the venue itself. The bathrooms, extremely nice. They had water filling stations. And I'm assuming that's part of what they're doing ongoing. I don't think that was just a Dave Matthews Band thing. Water filling stations, lots of restaurants inside the venue, places for food, and then bars aplenty. They have their own shaker cups. So like if you got like, say a martini, it's like kind of like a martini shaker.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So like it seems like they're really trying to elevate the experience that the attendees are having. Because we bought our seats last minute, we were sitting about 4 or 5 rows at the very back of the amphitheater, but it was still easy to see the band on stage, and they had video screens to either side. So our experience was great. I'm about 6'2", and so when I was sitting in the seats, there was still room for if someone needed to get by me, I didn't have to stand fully up and let them get by or get out in the aisle. So our experience was very good for that. There probably not enough room for someone to really dance in the seats, but enough room to stand there and kind of wiggle,
And I imagine with 9,300 people, it's not a huge amphitheater, so the sound must have been very good, I'm assuming.
Yeah. No, I was very pleasantly surprised at how good the sound was. It felt like they had elevated it enough to get over potential airplane noise, but not loud enough that it's hurting your ears or anything like that. Now, I have a friend that went to the show as well, and they had seats, which would be GA. They actually had seats, And he said it sounded phenomenal on the floor, and there was plenty of room down there. But yeah, I think overall they've done a very good job with this amphitheater. I'm really, honestly, more excited to see Phish there than I was Dave, but we had a blast. Getting in and out was super easy with ticketing and security. And then exiting, as far as like leaving, I thought, boy, it's going to take a while to get out of this parking deck. But it did not take long. They had police out there and security directing traffic. So getting in and out was easy for our experience.
Great. I hope it's the same when Phish
Same.
plays there. So let me ask you this, 2 questions to wrap it up.
Okay.
Are you planning to go to both nights of Phish or just one?
So I'm only able to go to one night because I have to leave the next day to go on a work trip. And I was really trying to figure out how, because I have to go to New Orleans for a work trip. And so I was talking to my manager, I was like, what's the wiggle room we have on, being down there Monday morning? And I'm just not able to make it work. But I was really hoping to go to both nights. But Oliver and I will be there for the Saturday show. And I'm not sure if he's more excited about going to his second Phish show than his first show, but he's not stopped talking about it. And because last time we surprised him on his birthday and then went to the Phish show the next day. So it was like he had no time to continue to ruminate and think about it. He's got more time. So he's like, Dad, what do you think they're going to play? Because they've been playing, these songs and this kind of stuff. Do you think we'll get a 25-minute jam? All this kind of stuff. So he's way more dialed in this time than he was last time.
Sounds like it. Sounds like every other fan I've heard over the past 3 weeks.
Exactly. He's grown much wiser in his 2 years since the last Phish show.
And my final question, and if you can answer it in the second part, I love it. If not, I understand. But what was your reaction? And if you remember Oliver's reaction when the tour was announced all the way back in February and you saw Birmingham on the list?
So I'd seen the rumors. I think I even commented on one of your posts about the rumors that they were going to announce a Phish run. And I was just praying that there would be Phish. If not, we're Phish in Birmingham. If not, we're going to see Phish in Atlanta and Alpharetta. So I was extremely excited when I saw 2 nights and then slightly bummed that I could only make it to one. The way we wanted to do it with Oliver is I didn't let him know any of the Phish rumors that there might be a show in Birmingham because I was wanting it to be a surprise, depending on when they announced it and when the actual show was, for a birthday present, a pre-back to school going, present, something like that. So I kept it pretty tight-lipped. So when he found out that he was going to see Phish, jumping up and down, what? We're going to a Phish show again? I'm so excited. Then he's immediately like, Dad, can we get out there on the lot and talk to other Phish fans and see if they maybe heard of us and maybe we can give away stickers and maybe, just immediately a million things at once. So he could not be more excited. And I could not be more excited to go to Phish with him. So.
Well, Bobby, thank you so much for coming back onto Attendance Bias, giving not just myself, but anyone listening the heads up on the Coca Cola Amphitheater in Birmingham, Alabama, on September 13th and 14th, the ins and outs, although admittedly there's not as much to know and there's not as much history because like we've focused on, there's not much that's happened so far in the amphitheater, but I'm glad that I was able to speak with you and that you've been to the amphitheater so you can give real time and kind of boots on the ground information. So Bobby, I appreciate you taking the time out and for giving really the important stuff that we need to know.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to come on. Like I told you the last time, yours was one of the first Phish podcasts I found when I jumped in all the way in a couple of years ago. And so getting to be on here twice is an honor, and I'm glad that we're able to continue to connect.
Oh, thank you. And just for anyone listening, last words, Bobby and Oliver's podcast is called the Phry Podcast, Phry for that. You can listen to it anytime, anywhere you get podcasts. So enjoy. And Bobby, please tell Oliver I said hello.
I sure will.
And that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank Bobby Shirley for joining me today, Phish.in for all of the recordings used in today's episode, Phish.net for the stat check, the Mockingbird Foundation for everything they do to support children's music education, and I'd like to thank you, obviously, for listening. If you enjoy Attendance Bias, please support the show by visiting www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donating anything you can. You can also follow Attendance Bias on social media. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Attendance Bias.